I'm back. That little voice inside your head. I know you're busy taking care of business and all, but seriously, you need to know about all the Cyber Week deals at Office Depot Office Max. All week long, get up to 60% off select furniture and seating, and 50% off a wireless Epson printer. Just $49.99. Plus, even more Cyber Week deals at OfficeDepot.com. Go ahead, you deserve it. Office Depot, Office Max.
Taking care of business.
Offers end 12/2, while supplies last.
You're listening to Spurscast, episode 472. My name is Paul Garcia, and I am the host of the Spurscast. Joining me on episode 472 is Project Spurs' own Tom Petrini. You can follow him on Twitter at RealTomPetrini. On this latest Spurscast episode, Tom and I will review the Spurs' past 4 games where they went 3-1. We will discuss the return of Tony Parker in detail and what's going to happen to DeJounte Murray's minutes. Then we'll give a quick blurb on Kawhi Leonard's progress, how Coach Pop says that he's going to be coming back pretty shortly here. We'll discuss whether or not LaMarcus Aldridge should be an all-star based on 21 games of the season so far. And then we'll, of course, answer your Twitter questions that you sent to us using the hashtag Spurscast. So please enjoy episode 472 with Tom Petrini.
And now, coming in via Skype is Project Spurs' own Tom Petrini. You can follow him on Twitter at RealTomPetrini. Tom, how you doing this evening?
I'm all right. How are you, Paul?
I'm doing very well. So, Tom, we're going to go to get into this. So we got quite a few, just a few topics, but then we have a bunch of questions from the Twitter fans who follow us on the Spurscast, and then we're going to go ahead and preview the Spurs' upcoming 4 games. So, Tom, let's just go through the Spurs' last 4 games since the last time I spoke with Colin last week. They went 3-1. The team. I actually predicted Colin and I both predicted they go 3-1. I kind of hit them all right there because I had the loss in New Orleans. He had a loss in Charlotte. So they get bounced by New Orleans by 17 points. That game was weird because the Spurs were up by 15 points really early. Then they just fell apart completely for the next 3 quarters. Then they go on at Charlotte and win by 20 points. Then they get a close win against Dallas by 7 in San Antonio, which you kind of felt like they were going to win that game. It was more like it had a comfortable lead, but it wasn't like anything where they got separation. And then against Memphis, it was actually pretty close on a Wednesday night, but then the Spurs did win by 9 overall. So just what were your takeaways? Anything come to mind in those first 4 games? Or those last 4 games, should I say, for San Antonio?
Well, with the Pelicans, I think it was pretty clear that they just couldn't compete down low with that 2-headed monster. It was tough for them to get boards. They got out rebounded. They got killed in the paint in that game, and it was tough to watch for stretches, honestly. But that'll happen when you've got Pau Gasol checking one of Boogie Cousins or Anthony Davis. Is tough. That'll happen. And then the other 3 games, I think, were against teams that the Spurs should beat pretty handily, pretty regularly. They took care of business in Charlotte, but they let a wounded Grizzlies team hang around. They let the Mavericks, who have been god awful this year, hang around in that game. And those are 2 teams where, there's some playoff history. They always play the Spurs tough. But, you would like to see a more dominant performance in those games. And, of course, they're playing without Kawhi Leonard. But, I think it kind of speaks to where this team is at now. I think you have them on pace to win 55 games this year at the rate they're going, 14-7, 2/3 of their games. Really good. And that's, I think, where they're at based on their performances in the past few games.
Now, going back to that New Orleans game, you brought up a really good point there. And that was kind of a question some people had, going into the season. I wasn't one of those people. I kind of felt like they didn't need big guys, basically, like your traditional big guys, because the league is shifting more towards small ball. You see the Spurs playing it this year with Rudy Gay and Kyle Anderson basically playing the 4 in most minutes off the bench. But since the Pelicans are that rare team who San Antonio's definitely going to see 3 more times this year because they're in the same division, and they could possibly see down the road to the playoffs because it looks like New Orleans probably will make the playoffs if everyone stays healthy there. Do you think that could be a concern even with Kawhi, that outside of Powell and LaMarcus, all they have is Laverne right now and Matt Costello if they want to call him up from the G League in the event that Aldridge or Powell gets into foul trouble?
I think, if it comes to that, it comes to that. Joffrey Laverne only played 15 minutes in that game, and I think against a team that big, that talented down low, you need your biggest, best defensive center, and Pau Gasol is not that. And you can. Spurs tried to go small for stretches of this game, didn't work great. It really was, I don't know anyone that can match up down low with that team. It's one of the most, formidable front courts in recent memory in the league. But, you've got to beat them by hitting outside shots and locking down everyone else. Locking down one of those guys.
Yeah.
Lock down one of those guys, live with, the other one and the supporting cast. That should be, a solid game plan. But Davis had 29, Cousins had 24. They combined for 26 rebounds, 7 assists. That's not going to work.
Yeah, and I think that just having Kawhi there, he puts more pressure on their end of the Pelicans to have to play defense when you have him and LaMarcus together. Maybe LaMarcus doesn't get as much foul trouble. So, yeah, I think both of us feel that if it were to come down to a playoff series, they kind of be okay as far as their overall team strength. Moving on to the next topic, the Spurs saw the return of Tony Parker. It's been 2 games now. Parker made his return pretty quickly. He was expected not to come back to about January, and going down to May 3rd and against that series against the Rockets, and now he's back. In 2 games, he's averaging 16 minutes a game. He's scoring 8 points a game, 4.5 assists, less than 1 turnover per game. Now, the consequence of Parker coming back is that you've seen DeJounte Murray lose his minutes. In these last 2 games that Parker's come back, Murray's only played 5 minutes. They've both been in the fourth quarter to start the fourth quarter. And Parker did say after that game, his first game, that Pop's going to have him only playing 15 minutes these first few games, but then he's going to get back to about 24 minutes once he gets into his groove, gets his legs under him. So my question to you is, and we're going to get this question a little bit later, and we'll kind of re-emphasize back to this point, is what do you think's going to happen with Murray here?
Yeah, Murray, it's unfortunate. Early in the season, obviously he came out really hot and, kind of fizzled out, lost his spot in the starting rotation to Patty Mills. And once that happened, it became pretty clear that when Tony Parker did come back, Murray would be behind him on the depth chart and Patty Mills, because you're not going to demote Patty from starting point guard to third, and I think it's smart the way Pop is using him now, getting him minutes, using him as a defender to start the fourth quarter and kind of jumpstart fast breaks. It's a good time for him to be in the game, I think. And I think it's good for Tony Parker to start the games because we've seen, very crisp offense. Not just what he's doing, scoring the ball, assisting, but just running the Spurs offense as we're accustomed to seeing it. I think Tony does a good job of that, and DeJounte is a good burst of energy off the bench. But yeah, his minutes are going to go pretty considerably down. He might get now that Patty Mills is going to be settling into his role as the sixth man. I think we're going to see on nights that Parker gets off, we're going to see DeJounte start those games probably, because he's shown he can do that. But he's going to be seeing his time as the Hall of Famer, and I think rightfully so. I was honestly skeptical. I was shocked that Tony came back this quickly. It's a really remarkable recovery when you think about it. To to be suffering that kind of injury in May and already back playing and at a high level with the burst that we're accustomed to seeing from Tony Parker, is remarkable. And, I was a little worried. I said, he wasn't the same player that he had been last year before this injury. And it was hard to picture him coming back stronger than he was last year. But, he looks like he has that burst. He came out, he blew past Dennis Smith Jr., I think, in that first game back.
Yes.
And I said, crossed him over, took him left, wrong-footed layup in past the rookie, and I was like, okay, he's back. Like, he's fine. He's ready to go.
Yeah, and two things you spoke about there was how you said he has control of the offense. It's just more calm right now. LaMarcus in that 41-point game against Memphis, he kind of credited Parker to kind of getting him into a groove early. And you could already just tell there's so much more pick and roll action now that Parker's back with Powell and LaMarcus. He easily just knows how to. He doesn't have. You don't have to rely on Danny Green to get you pick and rolls or Kyle Anderson. And I know it's a very small sample size, but in 32 minutes on the floor, the Spurs are scoring 123.9 points per 100 possessions with Parker, compared to their usual 105 points per 100 possessions when he wasn't on the floor. So it's obviously small data. It's gonna go down a little bit, but it does show, like you mentioned, the data backs up what we're seeing on the court there. And just like you, I feel the same about Murray, where I think that he's gonna have a very small role especially once Parker gets his legs under him, where he's only gonna play the nights that Tony's out or Patty's out, and it's gonna be hard for him to crack a rotation spot. I think the guy that we still got to watch is Bryn Forbes. I think there's some minutes there that maybe Murray could get some minutes at the 2. Because one thing Murray does have going for him is his defensive rating. When he's on the floor right now, they have a 95.9 points per 100 possessions defensive rating. When he's off the floor, they're back at 105.1. So. And you can tell like the skills there, the potential's there. And it's funny because you remember you and I, when I had you on last time, we were kind of like talking to is he ever going to get his spot back kind of thing, Parker. And then
right, yeah.
It wasn't just you and I. It was like myself, Jeff McDonald, Michael Wright, so a lot of the beat guys at the Spurs games. We after that game against Toronto, we were like all like, oh my gosh, this is it. Murray's arrived. Like Tony may not get his spot back. And then he
had like 70 rebounds in that one game, and I was like, wow, like. It's over. Like
we were all like that. No, yeah, exactly. So and then it's funny how now once he got benched, you could just tell his confidence is shaking a little bit. He doesn't have like that swagger that he had, where he was kind of like it looked like his chest was out, he was ready to guard people, and now it's like, okay, Pop's put him in the game. I got to go do stuff, and so. Maybe he gets it back. We don't know. He's still a young kid. He has a lot of potential. The Spurs luckily have him on a long-term deal because he's so young, and in his rookie deal right now. So, he still has time, regardless if it's not this season. Moving on.
I think it's something to watch moving forward. How this affects his confidence, because it looked like it was his coming out party. It looked like he, was going to be running the Spurs offense for the foreseeable future. And you're absolutely right. He had that swagger. He had that moxie. He was proving himself as a leader on this team, and now that growth gets stunted. And he's still a child. Like when I was there on draft night, he was 19 years old, and I was like a year older than him, but I was like, that's a child. That's a child my age. But a child nonetheless, and he's going to be the Spurs point guard, and he's still a kid, and he's polished. He's really talented, and I think he brings a lot to the table that the other 2 point guards on the Spurs roster just don't. He's a lengthy, rangy defender and player on both ends of the floor, but I think it's going to be important that this doesn't get him down. Yes, you want to be starting, of course. You want to be playing minutes. But you got to understand that Tony Parker has earned that spot. He's he's one of the greatest. See, he's still one of the best point guards that's playing this game. And I think you saw it in the way he set Aldridge up, not just on pick and roll stuff, but just clearing it out and getting it to him on that spot on the low block on the left that he loves, like getting it just right. Parker is so good at the nuance of the game, and I think DeJounte still has a lot to learn watching Parker. So we'll see how it goes, but I think it's it's definitely Tony's team until it isn't.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. That's an interesting question too, considering he's going to be a free agent. This is a contract year for Parker, so he may not want to take as much of a backseat, especially this year. He may want to play as much as he can just to see. I mean, not play as much, but play pretty efficient minutes because he knows he's kind of heading into the offseason there as a free agent. Moving on, this isn't really a topic. This is more so some news just to provide for the Spurscast audience. Kawhi Leonard is finally progressing. Before their game against the Dallas Mavericks earlier this week, Coach Popovich said he's getting very close to making progress on Kawhi. He said he's having contact now. Hopefully we'll get him back shortly. So just your initial thoughts, Tom, hearing that Kawhi's basically starting to practice. He was at the game the other night. He shows up every now and then. And, so that there's actually some sort of positivity coming out from the Spurs finally that he's actually, actually playing basketball again.
Yeah, honestly, I'm kind of shocked that the injury took this long to recover from. It's been a while since the last time we talked on here, but back then it was very beginning of the season. It was like, oh, he'll miss like a couple games maybe. I didn't realize that this was because it's so nebulous. What is it, quad tendonitis? That's just fancy doctor talk for his quad hurts. It's not much more specific than that. And so it was a confusing injury. It was one where there really wasn't a timetable. But I don't know about you, Paul, but I really miss watching Kawhi Leonard do basketball things.
Yeah, no, you can just tell, especially, it's that's not like. My biggest thing is we're going to get to this next topic. Let's just actually go into it. So let's talk a little about Aldridge here while talking about Kawhi at the same time. So Coach Pop basically said after the game against the Grizzlies, he's playing like an all-star. He basically is an all-star. I would agree with Coach Pop. Right now, if we had to pick all-stars right now, I think Aldridge might start in the West, or if he doesn't, he's definitely getting picked by the coaches if the fans don't vote him in. But my biggest thing still is, I looked at their I wrote my 20 games piece assessment, and they're still, 15th in offense, and you want to say that they're going to get so much better, which they will with Kawhi, but my biggest thing still is that, like, how do these two guys, mesh still once Kawhi does come back? You can just tell Aldridge doesn't really want to he knows he has to take a backseat, but, he really loves being the number one option right now. He knows everything's, they're living and dying depending on how he plays night to night, but, he also has to know that there's a better player in front of him, and in order to be at that level of Golden State, you have to have both you guys clicking at the same time. And that's kind of my biggest thing is, I can't say that they're going to do it just yet because I got to see it. I got to see both of them playing really, really high-level basketball at the same time. And so far in these 2 years, I haven't seen it as often. What do you think about both of these guys, especially when Kawhi comes back?
All right, so first of all, LaMarcus Aldridge is absolutely an all-star this year. And I'm going to take it a step further, and I'm going to say that, through 20 games, this is the best season of his career. It's his most efficient season. This year, his effective field goal percentage is 54%. Last year, it was 49%. And his last year with Portland, it was 48%. He's taking better care of the ball. He's just way more efficient, shooting 72% in the restricted area this year. It was 68% last year, 66% his last year in Portland. And he's putting up the point totals and the rebounds close to that last year in Portland, where after his first season with the Spurs, a lot of fans were like, this is not the LaMarcus Aldridge that we paid for. Spurs fans are getting a better version of that LaMarcus Aldridge this year. And I think that confidence is going to get him going through the rest of the season. his signature turnaround shot. He's shooting at 54% according to NBA stats, and that's a full 10 percentage points higher than it was last year. And he's a shooter. He needs to see that ball go through the hoop at the beginning of games, at the beginning of the season. And I think he's really getting in a groove in terms of finding his spots in the offense. When Kawhi comes back, he's going to get less touches. He's going to get less shots. He might get more rebounds. He might shoot even more efficiently than he is because he'll get a lot of open looks because Kawhi is so good at collapsing the defense. So his scoring numbers will probably dip a little bit, but I think we're seeing one of LaMarcus Aldridge's best years.
No, I would agree with you, especially in that sentiment, what you just said. You provide all the stats for us, but then also his Portland teams, I don't think have ever been this good. These guys, like you mentioned, they're on pace for 55 wins right now, the Spurs. And that's without Kawhi by his side. I think one thing you brought up was how you said he's going to attack the glass. I think that's something he's already started doing. There's certain nights when they're not getting him the ball, or teams are just double teaming him so much he really doesn't even want it. So what he's doing is, and he's made this comment where he's gone to the board more if he's not staying effective. I mean, if he's not staying kind of in the game on offense. So I think that's something maybe he does do a little bit more too when Kawhi has possessions, or he's kind of, and you've already seen he's taking over 1.5 threes per game. So now he's actually added the 3-point shot back to his arsenal. Yep. So when Kawhi does collapse the defense in and bring people over to double teams, he can easily find LaMarcus. For me though, I like what I'm seeing from him, but I still got to see them both on the floor together. I got to see them play. They can go to another level here that we haven't seen these last 2 years. If they can both be clicking at the same time. So I am very interested to see if they both get there when Kawhi does come back.
One last thing. You mentioned getting after the glass, specifically offensive rebounding. Aldridge is currently the 13th highest scoring average in the league. Nobody higher than him on that list has more offensive rebounds per game. He's averaging 3.1 per game, which is good for 8th in the league. Here are the players ahead of him. 7, Clint Capella. 6, Alex Len. 5, Dwight Howard. 4, Enes Kanter. 3, Steven Adams. 2, DeAndre Jordan. 1, Andre Drummond. So those are the best rebounders in the game of basketball right now. And Aldridge has just been getting after it. If he's not putting the shot up, he's trying to pull that rebound down. Yeah,
definitely. And something else, like how you just mentioned, was I wanted to see before we even record, I like to do a little bit of research. So I wanted to see who's having a similar season to Aldridge right now. So I plugged in some of his numbers. Who's playing less than 34 minutes, shooting over 50% from the floor, grabbing over 8 rebounds, over 2 assists, less than 2 turnovers, over 1 block per game. He's the only guy who the data spit out. There's nobody else that's having the kind of statistical season that he's having. He's the only guy. Usually there's about 5 players in that range. And so he's doing it, like we said, he's having a very efficient season. I agree with you totally.
So efficient.
Yeah, and it shows in the data, too, in this number right here. In his 699 minutes on the floor, the Spurs are plus 7.3 points per 100 possessions. When he goes to the bench at 309 minutes, they're minus 4.1 points per 100 possessions. So it's showing that this team does need him. He really does have a huge impact on them winning ball games and him being a go-to option right now with Kawhi Leonard out.
Absolutely.
Okay, so Spurscast listeners, Tom and I are going to take a quick break, and we will be right back with your Spurscast Twitter questions.
Hey folks, Dave DeFore of On the NBA with Dave DeFore here. I'd like to talk to you about my friends over at Harry's, my go-to razor for a smooth, close, and comfortable shave. Almighty Baller Radio is the go-to network for NBA podcasts, but if you visit harrys.com/ballers, you'll get a free trial set from Harry's and find out why over 3 million guys have switched to Harry's. Harry's is all about a great shave at a fair price. With top-quality blades made in a German factory with over 100 years of blade-making experience, you get a close, clean shave every time, 100% guaranteed, and at half the price of the leading 5-blade razor. So go to harrys.com/ballers, BALLERS today. You'll get the free trial kit that has become my personal go-to every morning. A weighted, ergonomic razor handle, 5 precision-engineered blades with a lubricating strip and trimmer blade, a rich lathering shave gel, and a travel blade cover. A $13 value, this is all yours for free when you sign up, just by covering the cost of shipping. You're supporting the network here at Almighty Baller, but you're also making a great decision for yourself. The decision to find out how Harry's has fixed shaving for the ordinary guy. Check out that URL, harrys.com/ballers. One more time, that's harrys.com/ballers to receive a free trial shave set for just the cost of shipping.
Okay, Tom Petrini and I are back. Please make sure to follow him on Twitter at @RealTomPetrini. So now, Spurscast listeners, Tom and I, you all asked us some questions through Twitter using the hashtag Spurscast. Thank you for doing that. I'm going to read your Spurscast handle, and I will ask the questions. Tom will respond first, and I'll give my response as well. Our first question, Tom, comes from @FramesFromMac. They ask, how many minutes do you think Tony is going to have? How is this going to affect DeJounte's minutes? Now, we've kind of already talked about DeJounte, so we don't really have to answer that one. But let me just give you some data real quick before you answer that. So Parker, last season he played 25.2 minutes per game. What do you think his minutes are going to be like this year?
I'm going to say 22, 23 minutes.
Okay, I'm going to take the cop-out answer. I'm just going to say 24 because he said that the other night. that's kind of what Pop's giving him when he's healthy is 24 minutes. And I think we both agree that he's going to get some back-to-back nights off, like kind of like what they're doing with Manu right now.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So okay. So that answers that one. Next question again about Tony Parker. Basically, @the_Mick_Martin42 asks, with Tony Parker back, do you believe DeJounte's minutes will return to what they were last season? So Murray played 8.4 minutes last season. This season he's playing 19.6, but obviously we've seen that he's taken a dip here. So do you think they're going to come back to that?
I think it's going to be closer. We're going to see Popovich trust him a little more in those situations when he is on the floor. It's not just going to be. We're already seeing him be used more than he was last year. He wasn't starting fourth quarters last year. He was primarily a mop unit guy, and so if the minutes stay the same, we're just going to see more responsibility. But I would expect the minutes to go up a little bit as well.
Okay, and so that, yeah, so both Tom and I agree with that one right there. With DJ's minutes, yeah, for me too. It's going to be more so like when Parker's out, or if they have a big lead, he might just rest Parker to start a fourth quarter, something like that in those scenarios. @Insomniac Games asks, Insomniac_Games, sorry there. What happened to Danny's three-point shooting? He's had a major drop-off since the 2015 season. So what they're asking here is, I think it's the 40% range. Before 2015, that season, Danny was shooting 43.6%, and before that, like his last 5 seasons, he had shot over 40%. Ever since then, he's been shooting below 40%. So what do you think, Tom, with Danny Green's three-point shooting?
I'm not super concerned about it. I think we had the LASIK surgery. Was that last year? The LASIK surgery?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it was 2 years ago, or maybe it was last year.
Yeah, I don't remember, but that obviously was a factor. But yeah, I think that when you look at Danny Green, yeah, his 2015-16 season was off. He shot 33%, and then 38% last year, 38% this year. I don't think it's a super significant drop-off. I think part of it is just the attempts were pretty high, and he was getting, pretty tough looks a lot of the time. He's kind of if they need a bailout three, he's the one they go to. I don't know. I think it's above league average what he's shooting now, and he's also added so much to his offensive game in terms of being able to put the ball on the floor. Like every year that I've watched the Spurs, when Danny Green has tried to dribble towards the basket, my heart rate picks up. Like it's a nervous experience for a lot of people at home. But this year, I don't feel that anymore. I feel actually somewhat calm when he attempts a finger roll, because a lot of the time it's going in. So I think while the 3-point shooting numbers have dropped off slightly, he more than makes up for it with the additions in his game that make him a much more dynamic scoring threat.
Yeah, and for me, it's more so about their offensive philosophy. You know, that last year where they were playing that motion heavy type of Spursy offense was that the year they lost to the Clippers with Tim Duncan's right before the year he retired.
Yeah.
So then the following season, then the following season they signed Aldridge and then also Kawhi makes this ascension where he's more of like, I don't want to call him an ISO player, but he's close to like a Kobe Bryant type of skill set in his prime kind of guy where he needs the ball a little bit. He's such an efficient scorer. So I feel like they haven't ran Danny. They don't run Danny off as much screen action anymore. He's not constantly having the ball in his hands in like a motion type offense, kind of like what the Warriors run right now. And so because Kawhi and LaMarcus are so usage heavy kind of players, LaMarcus the low block, Kawhi, running pick and rolls, getting players in the low block, taking guys one-on-one, it gets harder for you to get a rhythm because you don't have the ball in your hands as much. You're not constantly in that rhythm coming off screens. So I think that's a big product of it. But like we both mentioned, even though he's had a little bit of a slump here in these last 3 years, these last 2 years he's been above league average, and that's what you want from a guy who's not getting the ball constantly. And he more than makes up for it when he's playing elite level defense on the other end.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. He thrived in that motion offense that the Spurs have become synonymous with, and it's funny now because like that is not at all the style of play that they employ today. Like I will watch the Beautiful Game tribute on YouTube at least once a week to keep morale up, and like it's almost unrecognizable from the style of play that we see from them today, especially with the Aldridge heavy offense, which I think has been effective in just dumping it to him in the post, letting him dribble, draw a double team, kick it out, work it around, get an open shot. That's nice, and letting him go to work. But and when Kawhi's on the floor, you're right. It's like watching Kobe Bryant. It's like prime Kobe, and there's a lot of standing around by the other guys, because there's nothing else to do really. You watch the guy, you get out of the way. You let one of the most dominant scorers in the game go to work. I'm not saying the Spurs shouldn't do that. It just makes it tougher for a guy like Danny Green to get open looks than the completely selfless, beautiful game Spurs. It's completely different.
Yeah, so both Tom and I agree here that Danny's shooting, not slump, we wouldn't call it a slump, his percentage going down is just, again, he's over league average. That's what you want from a three-point shooter right now in the NBA. So he's still doing that part of his job, but a lot of it's more the Spurs' offensive philosophy that they're using these days. Our next question comes from @CliffordSound. They ask, do you feel that any moves need to be made before the All-Star break? If so, what are your wants? So, Tom, do you think, okay, first let's do this. Let's just take two takes here. One is, do you think they actually need to make a move? And then two is, if you thought they should make a move, or like even if just for fun, what trade do you think they should go for? Go ahead.
All right, so I don't think they need to make a move. I think they will be they're just fine now, and they will be more than just fine when Kawhi gets back. If they did make a move, just because I live for petty drama and all of that stuff, I love to just watch it all burn. Here's what I'm going to throw out there into the universe, see if it sticks. Do you want to pay Pau Gasol $16 million every year for the next 3 years? Because I don't particularly like that contract for the Spurs. I would trade him and a couple of prospects, whichever ones they want, to the Memphis Grizzlies for his brother Marc Gasol. And I think everybody wins there, because Pau gets to go back to where he started his career. He gets to be the grizzled veteran that, no pun intended, that gets the young guys all whipped into shape and playing well. Marc Gasol is having problems in that locker room, clearly boiled over with Fizdale getting fired. I think it doesn't make sense for him to spend his prime on a team that's rebuilding. I think, because Pau Gasol's contract is $16 million for every year for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Mark's is about 20.5. So you would throw in, give him the Latvian Kevin Durant. Give him maybe the walking bucket. Maybe Derek White. Maybe Kyle Anderson. Maybe all four. You know how we always talk about how, like, if the Summer League Spurs had a team, they would be pretty competitive.
Yeah.
I say let it happen. Give them all to Memphis. Take Marc Gasol. Have the best 3, 4, 5 in the league. That's what I would do.
Yeah, I mean, if I was in San Antonio's shoes, I would obviously do that trade instantly. I don't think Memphis would do it just because of Powell's long-term deal. I think if you're trading Mark, you want to get rid of him so that you can open up some cap space for the future or just to invest in your future. But yeah, I mean that's a fun trade right there. And if it did happen, it wouldn't happen until after I think December 15th, which is when Powell would be eligible to get traded. Okay, so. In my response here, I'm going to say no. I still need to see San Antonio versus Golden State, a full 7 games, completely healthy. You saw. I'm still of the opinion where I still think had Kawhi Leonard been healthy, I don't think the Spurs would have won. But I think it would have been a very competitive series, maybe gone 6 or 7 for sure. And we never know. They were up 25 before this guy got hurt, and I want to see that series play out. So right now, I think the Spurs are fine as long as they're healthy. Heading into the playoffs again this year, they should get another crack at Golden State and then at Houston as well. Now, for my fake trade, though, not fake trade, it would be legit if it really happened because the numbers work, is I would look at Paul George. Right now, OKC's kind of in a rut right now. It looks like they're not figuring things out. They're on the wrong track after 20 games. And they know that if they don't get it together, there's a very good chance they're going to lose him. He's kind of been open about going to the Lakers. So if I had to get Paul George and I'm the Spurs, here's the guys I would have to move to get him, which obviously this is why I don't think San Antonio would do it. You'd have to get rid of Danny Green, Kyle Anderson, Derek White, DeJounte Murray, and Davis Bertans. What do you think about that?
No.
Yeah, it's a no.
No.
Yeah.
No deal.
I mean.
Yeah, no. I mean, if anyone out of that, OKC 3, I think George would be the best fit in San Antonio. It would be really cute to have Kawhi Leonard and his son on the same team. It would be like a Ken Griffey Jr. Senior thing. But no, I don't endorse that.
Yeah, I mean, long-term, San Antonio never do that just because you're losing prospects in Murray and White, your future Bertans. Obviously, Tom and I both think that if the Spurs are healthy, they have a very good chance of really, really giving Golden State a matchup there in April and May. Our next Twitter question comes from @EricB1980. He says, do you all, like me, believe Brandon Paul should be playing ahead of Bryn Forbes in the rotation? In my opinion, his defense, size, athleticism, and underrated shooting dwarf Forbes' singularity and just scoring. What do you think about that, Tom?
Ooh, I think we should get this guy on as a writer. I like his verbiage there. That was well done, well played. And I tend to agree because, I think situationally, it's a good thing to have both. A guy who is a walking bucket and a guy who can come in and play tough defense on the other team's best ball handler. And the thing that makes me say Paul should get more minutes than he has, and I don't really understand why he hasn't, is because he has a really sweet stroke from three-point range. He's been very consistent hitting that open shot. And while he doesn't have the ability to create his own shot quite like Forbes does, he's been very consistent hitting that three-point shot. Let me pull up his stats here, see, because there was a certain point in the season where he was hitting an unsustainable clip, like 60%, and just ridiculous, and playing excellent defense and dunking the ball and having awesome hair. So I would like to see more of Brandon Paul.
Yeah, he has a versatile hair. He can go the braids, or he can go the hair out kind of.
Yeah, he can puff it out like the Duke starting five. Yeah.
Okay, so my response to this is, I think you made the right word there. I mean, you used the right word there. You said situational. I think that's kind of where they're at right now. Because in the beginning of the season, he was actually getting more minutes than Forbes. Pop was really trusting him. There was one game. It was at home in San Antonio where he had like two crazy passes where he was like went behind his back, then he like threw tried to be like a no look bounce pass, and ever since then Pop like chewed him out, and I haven't seen him get those minutes since then. But I don't think that's fully it. I think it comes down to situation. Right now they're at a time without Kawhi here where they're struggling offensively, and they just need scoring off the bench. And right now, Pop just needs he wants Bryn Forbes. It's almost like it's Gary Neal from a few years ago. That's what I'm trying to compare him to a little bit. Forbes right now at this point. He actually gave Forbes praise as of last night. When they beat the Grizzlies, he said if Bryn does not shoot the ball, I'm pulling him out of the game. He knows that's his job. If he's open, he better shoot it. If not, I'm taking him out. So I think right now where the Spurs are at, they're in a place right now where they need his scoring and they just need another shooter, despite the defense that they're giving up on the opposite end. But one key thing I saw yesterday, against the Grizzlies was in the fourth quarter, like 5 minutes left, Pop actually put Brandon Paul in there just to guard Tyreke Evans. So if it's a playoff series, I don't think either of them are playing heavy minutes either way. Pop's gonna shrink the rotation down. It's gonna be mainly Kawhi, Rudy Gay, Kyle Anderson, Danny Green kind of guys, Manu Parker kind of guys that are getting the minutes at the wing. But if there's a certain matchup that you really you want to give some minutes on somebody to guard James Harden or Russell Westbrook, then I think Brandon Paul is going to be that guy down the road that they're going to kind of give some of those minutes to. And like you mentioned, I think it's just situational. What do they need? Do they need a good defender right now? They'll put in Brandon Paul. Do they need some scoring off the bench? They'll put in Bryn Forbes. So I don't think either of them is going to have a consistent role in the playoffs. But I think for now, Bryn will. From what it looks like from Pop, Bryn's going to be the guy who gets those minutes right now at the backup two behind Manu.
And I think it's a little bit of a disparity because last 5 games, Bryn is averaging 18 minutes, Brandon Paul is averaging 5, and I think we could see closer to maybe 12 and 8, so something in the middle where both of those guys get a chance to have meaningful NBA experience, which is, really important for developing these guys.
Yeah, that's a good point as well. And it just comes down to, what do they need at the time? And that's kind of where I'm at with that question. So we'll see. It depends too on Pop, who just want to play at those particular moments. Our last question comes from @Lecter_Furioso. Okay. Anyway, he says, seeing his numbers, is the new LaMarcus-centered offense actually making the team better offensively? Now, I'll just give you statistically, it's not. Their Spurs are only scoring 105 points per 100 possessions, which is ranked 15th in the league, which is a league average offense. But Tom, you said you had a counter to this.
Well, I mean, I think no, the offense is not better. The offense is always going to be better with Kawhi Leonard doing his thing. But what we have seen with the offense with LaMarcus is something that I hope the Spurs employ more when Kawhi returns, and that's using LaMarcus Aldridge to his full potential. It's not going to be, they're not going to use him as much when Kawhi gets back, but LaMarcus Aldridge is one of the elite post scorers in the NBA. And when you get the ball to him on the low block, it either gives him a good scoring opportunity or draws a double team and creates an open shot for somebody else. And the Spurs, he's done a really good job of kicking the ball out. The Spurs have done a good job of feeding him in the post, spreading the floor around him. And just imagine how much more effective that style of attack is going to be when you replace Kyle Anderson in the starting lineup with Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah, no, it's going to be dramatic. I guess we're all going to see it. And just like you said, statistically it's not a better offense, but I think the best thing for them, like you mentioned, is they figure out an identity, how to make Aldridge their go-to guy on certain possessions, or it's in the case where Kawhi gets a break or they're double teaming too much. Now you can go to LaMarcus as your number 2 guy and kind of work at some sort of balance out that way as well. So it becomes tougher to guard them in the long run, San Antonio. Okay, the last segment of our
I think the ball movement has had to be better. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay.
I just wanted to say that the ball movement has had to be better without Kawhi out. The offense has had to be crisper because you can't just give it to Kawhi and watch him get a bucket.
No, for sure. And they're actually doing that. When you look at their their turnovers are down outside of their losses, and their assists are, I think they were like 7th in the league in assists. They're assisting on 60% of their made baskets. So he's got a really good feel of when I get double team or I feel it coming, I know how to kick it out, and everybody swings the ball around, and either guys attack on the closeout or they shoot the open shot. So that's going to be something that they're definitely going to need when Kawhi gets back to keep that up. The last segment of our Spurscast, we're going to go ahead and preview their next 4 games before I will record Spurscast episode 473 probably next Thursday. So, Tom, the first game is at Memphis Friday. The Spurs just beat the Grizzlies, like we mentioned to start the show. The Grizzlies are 7-13 right now. They're 12th in the West. They've lost 9 games in a row. They're 1-9 in the last 10 games. Offensively, this is their biggest issue. They're only scoring 102.1 points per 100 possessions, 23rd. Defensively, they're holding teams to 103.6 points per 100 possessions, which is 11th. They're missing Mike Conley, Chandler Parsons, like 5 guys really on their team. Who do you think wins that game between San Antonio and Memphis?
I mean, it's a trap game. Wounded animal. Spurs just beat them. They are, they've lost 9 straight, right? And have had their coach, who a lot of the players loved, fired. We all remember, Take That for Data, an all-time coaching rant on the behalf of his players. That was awesome. I think Fizdale really got thrown under the bus on that one. But, it's a team like that is a dangerous team to play. And so I think the Spurs will win that game, but the Grizzlies are going to come out and try to win and give their best punch. It wouldn't surprise me if they led for large chunks of this game, but I think the Spurs just have too much firepower.
Okay, so you have a win as well. So you and I both have wins at Memphis. Then they're off on Saturday, the Spurs. Then they go play at OKC for the first time this season in Oklahoma, should I say. On Sunday, the Thunder are 8-12, 10th in the West. They're 4-6 in their last 10. Offensively, this is their biggest issue. They're only scoring 102.6 points per 100 possessions. They're number 1 in isolations, according to the data. Defensively, though, they're pretty good. They're holding teams to 100.2 points per 100 possessions, which is 3rd. They were up on San Antonio by 23 points recently, but then the Spurs, did come back, and that's kind of been OKC's biggest problem, is that they just can't hold leads against teams. So what do you think happens in that game against OKC?
Yeah, I think that it's going to be very easy for the Spurs to defend this Oklahoma City attack, and that sounds weird to say considering they've got, Melo, Russ, and Paul George, but we haven't seen them work together well this year. Russell Westbrook, last night he went off. He had 19 points in the 4th quarter, shot it was like 5 of 7 from 3. He was incredible. He was absolutely amazing. And they lost that game. They went into the 4th quarter down 7, and they lost by like 13. And it's really – and their best player scored 19, played amazing. So I think OKC still has a lot to figure it out, and I just don't see them figuring it out against the Spurs.
Okay, so you have San Antonio in that one?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have the Spurs as well. I was kind of that one was a little tough to call, but I'm going to go ahead and call that one for the Spurs as well. So now then the Spurs this is a back-to-back now. The next night they travel back to San Antonio and they play Detroit, the Pistons. The Pistons are doing very well this season. They're 14-6, second in the Eastern Conference, right behind Boston. They are 7-3 in their last 10 games. They have a top 10 offense. They're ranked 7th, 106.8 points per 100 possessions. Defensively, they're 12th, so they're better than league average, 103.7 points per 100 possessions. Who do you think wins this game Monday night in San Antonio?
I think this is a game that the Spurs are going to struggle in. Second night of a back-to-back, so we might see some players resting, Manu, maybe Tony. And Drummond is a problem. That guy, I think it's similar to what we saw against the Pelicans. The Spurs just don't have anybody that can bang with him. And second night of a back-to-back with travel in a tough matchup against a good team. It's easy to overlook Detroit because they're Detroit and they haven't been anything to write home about since, like, Mouse at the Palace. But, like, which was, like, 14 years ago this week. But, yeah, I think Detroit wins this game.
Okay, I totally agree with you as well. For a few reasons here, I think that Detroit, one of the things the Spurs have had trouble with is teams that kind of can keep scoring at a pretty high rate, but then also, that are pretty good defensive. And I just think of some of their defenders. They got Avery Bradley out there. Tobias Harris is having a really good season. He's really long. They have different guys coming off the bench. They have Stanley Johnson. And so they just have a better team feel. You mentioned it. Drummond's been a beast this season. Start the year 14 and 15 nightly on the glass, especially. So I think that's a loss for San Antonio as well. Then the Spurs have Tuesday off, and then they host the Miami Heat. The Heat are 10-11 this season, 10th in the Eastern Conference. They are 5-5 in their last 10 games. Offensively, they have their issues. They're only scoring 100.6 points per 100 possessions, which is 26th in the league. Defensively, they're holding teams to 103.9 points per 100 possessions, which is 13th in the league. Who do you have in that one?
Spurs already played Miami this year, right? And they lost?
No, they beat him. And Aldridge had a very good game. I think he had like over 30 that night.
Okay. Either way, Spurs, I think, are going to win that game by a pretty substantial margin, say 20 plus.
Okay, yeah, I agree with you too. I think, let me see here. I put up just real quick. Against Miami, yeah, they were up by 20 against Miami last time, and this was in Miami, and Aldridge had 31 that night. So I have a win as well for San Antonio. So Spurscast listeners, Tom and I both predict that by next Thursday, their Spurs should have gone 3-1 in these games, so they should have a record of 17-8. We'll see if we're both correct here. We both have the losses at Detroit, against Detroit on the coming Monday. So that'll be something to watch. Thank you, Tom, for coming on Spurscast, episode 472. Spurscast listeners, please make sure to follow him at Real Tom Petrini. What do you have going on coming up pretty soon with the Spurs, Tom?
So I'm currently writing LaMarcus All-Star about how this really is, I think, his best season to date, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how this team plays with Kawhi Leonard back. It might be, a little awkward reintegrating him. And he'll probably just drop 40 the first night and be like, wow, Tom, you're an idiot. But I'm just so excited to watch Kawhi Leonard do basketball things, Paul. I missed it. It's a medicine in my life. It's something I need to get through the day. And I'm glad I'm going to have my medicine soon.
Yeah, it's been a long time. Like you mentioned earlier when you asked me that, how does it feel not to have seen him in a long time? Like, man, I just forgot, how he plays. It's been that long. Like, it's been since the Warriors series. Spurscast listeners, also make sure you go read Tom's more former piece. He wrote a piece called "Leonard's Return Will Bring Spurs from Good to Great." He just released that on November 16th. So make sure you check that out. It's a really good piece. And like you mentioned, he's writing a piece about Aldridge possibly making the All-Star team here. All right, Tom. Have a good night, man. Thanks again for coming on Spurscast, episode 472.
Thanks, Paul. Anytime. Have a good one.
Thank you again to Tom for coming on Spurscast, episode 472. If you're on Twitter, please follow him on Twitter at RealTomPetrini. Just a few more announcements. Please make sure to keep sending us questions using the hashtag Spurscast. Those are always awesome when you all send them to us. But whoever I have as a guest for that week, we definitely enjoy talking with those different topics. And it's not just like the set topics that we have to create. It's fun to get in some of those different types of avenues of topics that you all bring forth with your questions. If you're on Twitter, please follow at Project Spurs, at ATLeague_NBA. at the Spurscast and at Project Spurs Network. Online, please visit projectspurs.com, analyzingtheleague.com, spurson6.com, and projectspurs.net. And lastly, of course, if you're listening to this on iTunes, please leave us a rating and review. We'd really, really appreciate it. Thank you. Have a great day.
I'm back. That little voice inside your head. I know you're busy taking care of business and all, but seriously, you need to know about all the Cyber Week deals at Office Depot Office Max. All week long, get up to 60% off select furniture and seating, and 50% off a wireless Epson printer, just $49.99. Plus, even more Cyber Week deals at OfficeDepot.com. Go ahead, you deserve it. Office Depot, Office Max.
Taking care of business.
Offers end 12/2, while supplies last.